Quorum.
Okay, tonight we'll start the regular scheduled Board of Fire Commissioner meeting. We'll start with any public comment. Oh, sorry, start with some roll call first.
Good evening. Commissioner Admin and Commissioner Pratt are not available this evening. Commissioner Byers,
Here,
Commissioner Webster,
Here.
Commissioner Woolham,
You're muted. Looked like you said.
Sorry, here.
Chief Cowan,
Here.
Legal Counsel Matt Paxton,
here.
and Board Secretary Amy Oakley.
All right, move on to item number 2, which is public comment. See, we have a couple people in the building. Do you guys have some comment for tonight?
Well, we're here to talk about the property at Northeast 153rd Place. We're really interested in the community garden idea. Ken Dean is who lives right next door is heading some things like we had talked about before. He's looking into some grants and it looks very hopeful if we end up using that property for a community garden and you guys want to hang on to it. Of course, you could take it back at any point, but it would be a good use in the meantime.
Currently, it's being used, as a community gathering point for the children.
Oh, when they're going to
Yeah,
school.
Yeah, I mean, and there are sometimes 10, 15 cars there, which without that resource, they would be on side streets and creating hazard, and for the pedestrians as well.
Yeah, right now it's where the buses stop to load kids and unload kids, and so it's a real gathering for the kids right now. So we thought it would be a natural place for some type of community activity, multi-use.
The main thing we're concerned about is not to see it being sold off, and then the city of Kenmore used that particular lot as their example of a triplex. It was a kind of a surprise to us.
We thought in the future that would be a good spot for an actual fire station, especially with the Juanita Drive increase improvements and the triplexes and duplexes going in, eventually more multifamily homes. I think there's more of a potential for a need for the Kenmore Fire Department to have some expansion in that area.
And to have a resource for stockpiling community resources for disaster type.
Or whatever you guys thought you would want to use it for.
Yeah. I think
So
we're
you
looking
guys could
forward-
use it and we could use it.
Kenmore's got a lot of beautiful parks. We were just at the new one over the weekend, and now we're practicing how to pronounce the name. I think we got that down there. But that's, all these little parks are nice to have as a resource. And just for the people in that local community to have that area to go and to walking their dog around and looking around, waiting for their kids, it's very important. Just people would
It'd be
really,
a nice community addition.
yeah, people would really be, and I think we could get a much more formal, outline and petition. So Ken did for you for his email to you with all that.
Yeah,
You guys got
okay.
that?
So you guys are aware.
That's basically the consensus, keeping it as a resource and then having it as a potential garden area for the community to
And
engage
Ken's
in.
only talked to a few people in the area and words spread.
Yeah.
I think that you said there's 22 households
Yeah.
that were interested
And that
already in
was just word of
helping.
mouth in the small neighborhood area.
Yeah.
So we've just seen a lot of people that are very excited about having a place to garden. There's a lot of good examples. Like she said, we work with King County advisor on how to get these things started. We're willing to do some homework, and there's a lot of people that are willing to put time into making success. keeping an eye on it, having eyeballs on what's going on in the neighborhood, you know, it's pretty important as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Could I get your names?
Yeah, Douglas Hill, Hill,
And Jody Hill, Jody what?
you want your address?
No.
Email address, can we get a mailing address for your meeting? or anything?
I'll check in with you.
Okay.
Yeah, they
It's
will.
kind of good point of contact for
Yes,
representing you all then.
he's got everybody's.
Great,
email.
thank you.
We have,
Thank you, guys.
hand online, thank you, and another one in the room.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and.
Stacy, we're hearing another comment in the room.
I'm also in support of this. I'm a resident in that area. I do have a student that's in that area. And the bus stop is really important. It's a community place. It's a space where students get off the bus, is where kids walk down to the elementary school. So it would be a big place to be a community space. I've been here for 10 years, I think. And I remember when at one point we were using the fire station there as an arts space. And
Oh, it
so
was the Boys and Girls Club for a while.
I don't know if it was the Boys and Girls Clubs, but I was there as an art teacher, so people would come in and
Oh,
do some
summer
art
program.
lessons there, so. It is a really important place. I would hate to see it turn into, another complex.
Yeah, it's so busy these days, the Kenmore Police park there quite frequently. Mailman parks there to eat his lunch,
Yeah.
fire trucks pull there to get out there on the road and figure out. where they go.
Excuse me for just a moment. I'm having a very hard time hearing. It sounds like there's 3 people speaking.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to remind everyone that they had a 3-minute limit on their public speaking. So if we could just have one person speak at a time, I'm missing some things. Thank you.
My name is Valencia Carroll. It's VALENCIA. Last name Carroll, CARROLL.
Thank you for coming.
And we have one public comment online, Stacy Valenzuela.
Hi, Stacy Valenzuela Kenmore. For 7 to 8 years, maybe a little bit longer, is too long to allow just storage at the old firehouse at the corner of 70th. I'm glad finally we're talking about it. I would like to see a future fire apparatus or aid car, as in the past when the discussion about storage was held, several other people came forward with that as well. It takes too long for an aid car to get from Shoreline should the aid car from Station 51 be occupied for people up on the hill. The other thing I wanted to offer is that you can also have in the front part either a youth center, small business starting out, community meeting space, and possibly add some affordable housing above that can even service starting out firemen or EMTs. That would be another advantage. You can still have, and it would be affordable housing because starting pay, would still be under that guideline. So you can get grants for that, and they're available right now. I would also love to see in our community a safe haven box. Safe haven is the boxes where it has like a crib apparatus and anybody can anonymously drive by and leave their newborn rather than leave a newborn at a trash can or behind a dumpster or just in a field somewhere. And I think that this would be a great added advantage to Kenmore to have that. It only costs about $2,000. It would cost a little bit more for the construction of adding it to either fire station or up on the hill. It actually has a bell that rings to let people know, to let the firefighters actually know that the baby was dropped off. And we here can, support that by having little, bags with the few diapers, the infant formula, a blanket, some clothes for the baby. I know that also a community garden on one side or something like that would be an added advantage. We also already have a community garden up at North Shore Lutheran Church that people in the community might want to check with them if they would add a couple more boxes. I know that they rent them out only to pay for the water expense. I just wanted to bring all those things up and hope that you will decide something that will enhance the community in that area and be a great asset for the firefighters, for our residents, and continue to have possibly residents included in these discussions, maybe a task force that could get together and come back to you and say what they, what the community really wanted. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Any other public comment? We got Dave Marin with the hand up.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. I just want to say I want to encourage the board to make sure that you retain that property. It's currently zoned conditional use for a fire station. That's a very difficult thing to gain today. Plus you already own the property, so you're, as appreciation occurs, you're covered on that end. I also will say that a couple times we did response surveys, and that location is almost the perfect place to serve North Finn Hill. Gets down to Arrowhead, over to Inglemore, and down to Kenmore Park, and even Lake Point area in a very prompt manner. I hope you can find an acceptable use for it that's within the zoning. I think the suggestion that the community be involved in what might be used up there along with the city would be great. When I was a commissioner, we had a joint Boys and Girls Club and community center up there. It was used for people to do exercise classes, for youth activities. And while the might have some minor repairs up there, and I don't know who would pay for that exactly, but I think it's a viable location for a lot of stuff up there that the community could use. But I just want to encourage you to keep that property, because it's a tremendous asset to the district, and eventually you're going to need to expand service up on the hill. I think you're probably quite not there yet, but anyway, thank you.
All right, thanks for coming. Any other public comment? Not seeing any. So we'll go on, move to number 3 here on the agenda, and that's the approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, go for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And aye. Passes unanimously. Move on to number 4 here, and this is the board discussion and possible action items. 4.1 is the approval of the financial policy 6200.
So I emailed you all an updated version. After the last update, we shared it with Matt Paxton, who had some great revisions to it. He and I discussed a few items, and then I sent it out again. I believe it was only yesterday, but it had a few added items that he had looked at. And if there's further discussion, or if you feel comfortable adopting it, then great. If not, we can table it to the next meeting. It's not something that has to be done tonight, but only if you guys are comfortable with the document as it stands.
Okay.
Can we take a minute and hear from Mr. Paxton on the items that he changed or added to it? Because I started to get through it, but it wasn't highlighted, so I didn't catch all the ones. Can you take a minute for us, Mr. Paxton?
Yeah, not a problem. So what I did first was looked at your current policy, and I noticed that the current policy has restrictions on what the fire chief can do without the board approval. And so I added those restrictions in, and I think the current limit is $10,000. Above that, the chief should kind of go to the board and make sure that you're aware of what's going on. I believe that Chief Cowan, to be consistent with Shoreline's policy, bump that up, I think, to $25,000. That's within your discretion, because it's really not a legal requirement. That's just to keep the board informed of larger purchases. I did go through the policy to make sure that the legal thresholds above which you have certain bidding requirements, public procurement requirements, and those were all meeting the thresholds. I think I found a few areas where I had questions. I want to make sure that we're citing to the right policies for North Shore Fire. But the biggest change I would say is in paragraph, I believe it's paragraph 3 or 4 now, where we talk about what the chief can do kind of unilaterally versus when does it go to the board for further approval.
4C and D is probably the ones that you should be, referencing. It has to do with the threshold of, requiring board authorization prior to entering into service contracts over 25,000. And then D, the expenditures within a budget year that are specifically planned and budgeted, when that needs to be approved by the commissioners and when I have discretion. That'd be 4C and D.
All right. Yeah, I did catch those, so thank you. As far as the rest of it, I spent quite a bit of time going over it, and it's very consistent, and it does cover my thoughts that $25,000 threshold for the board being notified is acceptable in today's dollars. $10,000 didn't seem to buy much anymore. I hate to say that, but that's the way it is. But so far, I can go along with this change. It works for me.
Any other discussion or a motion?
I wanted to announce that Commissioner Pratt has joined the meeting.
Any motion on this policy? You guys want another meeting to look it over?
I'm okay with it. But I kind of do rely heavily on Rick with his input. So I guess I would wait to see what Rick has to say. If he's ready for a motion, then I'd say we're ready.
I believe we are. Mr. Pratt, do you have any comment about our 6200 policy?
No, after reviewing it, and I feel like it's consistent with what Shoreline does. It updates our policy to meet the current demands of the economy, and I'm okay with it. Makes sense to me.
Okay. Well, then I'll make a motion that we accept 6200 revised policy.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, we can go ahead and vote.
Aye.
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 And aye. Passes unanimously, sorry. Yeah, right, okay.
Thank you.
Next.
This will help us because it's pretty much a mirror with Shoreline. So staff will be able to just follow one policy. That's good, which is good.
Next item is item 4.2, and that's the discussion of the property at Northeast 153rd Place.
Right, so just an update and this for you all as well. So we have a consultant that's working on exactly what we were talking about, and ex-Commissioner Marin is absolutely right. There's some other studies and so forth that show that that's probably in a pretty good location. But what this study will do is look at not only current needs and zoning, but what the potential is for different zoning and different forecasting over the next 40 plus years with different growth scenarios. It is throwing some stuff against the wall, essentially, and trying to figure out which assumption is going to be correct. But at the end of this, we're hoping by the June meeting to have a final report. I'm hoping within the next few weeks having a draft report, which I can go back and forth with him and get it, cleaned up and ready for you all to see. And then at the June meeting, have a more robust conversation about what that looks like and whether, and for us, the decision point is really, are we going to keep it or not? And if we're going to keep it, what is it going to be? Is it ever going to be a fire station, even with an 8-car, or is there something else that we could use it for? Disaster cash has been something that we have floated. I've been getting all sorts of different ideas and interests from different organizations. And so this might warrant, certainly to carve out if we are ready, and I'll have to let Amy know and let the whole board know if we're ready to talk about it in June, because we'll either have to carve out a bit of time for it or a special meeting, depending on the timing and how you all want to address it. I am certainly sensitive to everything that has been, brought to me, but for me, I just need to present the facts and then have a conversation with the board, and then the board will make a decision on whether or not it's something that we need for the long term or not. And then if we're not going to need it, then we can talk about what that looks like. So I did get an update that he said that it's a struggle of getting all the data right now, because everybody's very overloaded with getting the data in so that he can put it into his computer model. And so he's hoping within the next few weeks.
Also, I have a question for Mr. Paxton again. I see that we got your comments about possibility of a community garden lease space, and can you expound on that a little bit for us?
Yeah, so you currently have a lease on that property. The lease covers the entire property, even though the use is limited to interior storage. There are other responsibilities for that tenant, like maintaining the entire property, and presumably they mow the lawn. They if there was something broken or some danger or hazard on the property, that would be their responsibility for handling. So to have another use on that would interfere with the current lease. That's not to say that this tenant might not be willing to say, hey, all I use this property for is interior storage, so let's carve out some area where we can use it for a different purpose. But that would require a lease amendment. So that would be up to negotiations until that lease expires. And then there are other things that we need to be aware of when we consider these, including liability concerns, permitting concerns. You are a public agency, so we do need to make sure that we get some fair market value in exchange for any use that occurs on the property. What that is, I guess, depends on the use and the terms. What was mentioned earlier today was kind of a license where you would be able to revoke that use at any point. So that might not have a whole lot of value. So there would be there's more to consider as we go through this process. But from a legal perspective, there are some challenges that are not at this time over things that we cannot overcome, at least if we have cooperation.
Thank you.
Any other comment? Okay, we'll move on to.
Excuse me, there is a comment in the chat, if Amy doesn't mind reading that.
So the chat comment is currently need to verify how much notice to not renew lease is needed as well.
So I can answer that. Because we knew that this was going to be for this year, where we're going to be diving in deeply to trying to figure out what we were going to use for the property for, the lease is up at the end of this year, regardless. And that's also in conjunction with the city of Kenmore and their desire to figure out what we're going to do for it, because Dave Marin is absolutely right too, in that we have a conditional use, and fire stations are actually almost all zones can accept a fire station. However, the way we're using it now isn't really, it's not in line with what our intent is with having it as a fire station. So that's why we've had to go to the city for a temporary use permit for it. And that runs out at the end of this year. And they've made it very clear to us that we need to make a decision on this, figure out what we're doing moving forward beyond this year, which is why we gave the shop owner, the person that's using this for storage, that his lease is going to be up at the end of this year.
Move on to board resolutions. None on the agenda this time, okay. Move on to the consent agenda, item 6.1 for vouchers.
I make a motion, we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Okay, go for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
And aye. Passes unanimously. Next item is item 6.2, Commissioner compensation.
Mm,
We did all that.
That's all part of it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, we'll move on to reports. We have a fire chief report.
That's correct. I would ask if there's any questions, but I do have 3 updates that I need to provide as well. So maybe ask if there's any questions about my activity report first.
Seeing none.
Okay, so one of the things in that has come to our attention is the administrative workload is decreasing here, and it's increasing, specific to 61. So what I would like to do is move Kathy for 1 or 2 days a week up physically up to 61. We would forward the phones to there now that we've got everything figured out there. And we would have the backstop with trying coordinating that schedule with Jennifer. So somebody could be here, but we're seeing very little traffic here. And we have workload that she can help out with. And this is part of a ongoing assessment of what do we need for administrative staff. And so we're just looking for her to, because the commitment was to have somebody here, 4 or 5 days a week. So this wouldn't be every week, 1 or 2 days, depend on the workload for the week and all that, but we'd like to utilize her better, and she has workload capacity. So instead of adding somebody physically up at 61, we'd be better utilizing our staff.
So that would be 2 days a week.
Yes,
Okay.
up to, I mean, there might be weeks that there might be 9. Might be weeks, I suppose there could be 3, but I think our intent is that 1 or 2 days, would probably be something that would be a good compromise.
And so would that be no one here at the front desk?
Well, Jennifer, we'd still have somebody here, or if there was deliveries or if somebody walked in, we either backstop with Jennifer or Wendy potentially. Phones would be forwarded to her desk up at 61. But so there would be still presence here, just wouldn't be Kathy in the front desk. It'd be somebody in an office, which would be alerted if somebody walked in. But we're just finding that there isn't hardly anybody coming in, for general stuff. Still some people coming in for, like, say, Wendy with, fire prevention and so forth, but not so much for general business. Any concerns?
no concerns. This actually makes a lot of sense to me if the workload is needing that. I mean, to me, that's part of the beauty of working together, is that we're able to shift kind of where we need to. I'm a little surprised there's that low of traffic, but somebody's always there somewhere. So
Yeah,
I think as long as that piece is covered, then I don't really have concerns about that.
okay. Thank you. I don't know how much traffic, I'm just told there's very little. That's what I'm being told.
I'm curious about it. It is one of the things that we said that was going to be something that would happen, is that we would keep a presence here.
Right.
So that if people did have questions or anything, they could come in and ask. And so I would like to see someone remain here,
Okay,
at least for that purpose.
and that's what we'd like to do, so, just maybe not sitting right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as there's someone here, it doesn't bother me. Any other comments?
As long as that somebody that comes to the desk can ring a bell, then we get somebody out there. They don't have to be out front, but there's somebody that can answer the, in person. We need to have
Okay.
somebody. Because we do have people that come in for blood pressure tests and weird stuff like that, So, okay, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. The other piece that or the second piece was to talk about the contracts for service with NEMCO. I just want to give you a quick update. We're trying to figure out emergency management across the three cities and the lanes of travel or the partnerships with Shoreline. Because NEMCO has been established and is, the two cities, Nutt and the previous, North Shore Fire Department. However, operations for the North Shore Fire Department is the Shoreline thing now. So we're trying to figure out how that works. And I've been encouraging NEMCO and the city of Shoreline to talk about maybe Shoreline coming into NEMCO or NEMCO into Shoreline or some better partnerships there, because one of the things that we're trying to figure out is the expectation of, do we set up an EOC here or is an EOC at 61? And 61 is where the leadership is going to be, and that's where fire department operations are going to be. So the expectation is that there's going to be an operations component out of the EOC here. We got to figure that out. And so I just want to brief the board that we're working through trying to figure out what this all looks like. I don't have a proposal. This is just an informational update for you all. So, okay.
Yep.
And then the last piece is that there's a few things that kind of over the last 24 hours. I need to read an email from DC Hochstein. One thing that came up that we talked about is the AV in this room. And as you may recall, we had talked about it and thought that we should delay it, to 2024. It's worse than expected. And it's almost like paper clips and duct tape to try and get it to work. I had a King County Fire Chiefs Association meeting here for the county. And fortunately, Wendy was here to figure out, you got to turn this one off and that one off, and then you got to wait for this, and you got to do this. And she got it to work, but then the quality of the video was terrible as well. And as you know, we have some issues in this room already. So we had received previous quotes. It was going to be over $100,000 to redo everything because it was proprietary and we have to basically gut it. The most recent one I have, I asked for an update, was for $75,000, a little over $75,000. But I believe that we're going to have to go out and get bids on this, because even though it's proprietary now, and JMark is the only one that can do the work as it stands because of the proprietary nature. I believe that if we're gutting the whole thing, that would allow for other AV companies to potentially bid it. But this isn't something that was bid or that was that we were going to do this year. But I'm feeling like we really need to do it. We have an EMT class from the county that was supposed to be here, and they're reluctant to be here because of the quality of the AV. And so we have these needs that are ongoing that I didn't realize maybe as much that it was in as bad a shape as it was, or that the needs were going to be pressing. So I prefer not to kick this to next year and to look at doing it this year. And if you guys are okay with that, I would start the process of at least getting bids for us to review. It was something that we were going to do anyway, and actually we budgeted some money last year that we didn't spend on it, but it was something that we felt at the time when we budgeted for 2023 that we could delay it to 24, and I don't believe that we should anymore.
I'm
But it's just
comfortable moving.
unbudgeted, so.
I'm comfortable moving forward and getting bids on that.
Unless they are gonna drop it another $25,000 in a couple of years, which I don't see being.
No, it's just everything. If you can get the parts, they cost twice as much as, they did, a year or two ago, but, supply chain is getting better. So this might not take a year to get done, but, we won't know until we really get into it. But Zeb has done some great work trying to evaluate and make sure that we're getting the right, focus as far as what we need to do here. Well, if there's no problems with it, then I will at least get bids and then we can make a decision from there.
That's,
Okay,
I agree with that.
right. Thank you. Sorry, there's a few more updates. These are, I just got these are the last 24 hours. The 2 new 8 cars are in production at Braun, and I'm excited. They're going to be done by the end of this month, supposedly, which is much better than the 6 months that we were given, just a couple of months ago. So, so that's good. One of the things that, along with that, you may have seen in my activity report, we had some fire chiefs from Lima, Peru here. They wanted to stop by and say thanks. We gave them, or North Shore gave them an 8 car 24 years ago, and it's still in use.
Wow.
So you got to figure it's like what 12, 15 years old when we gave it to them. So it's got to be like 40 years old. They were still gushing about it and all this and that. I would like to, you don't have to make a decision tonight, but I'd like for you all to consider giving them one of our 8 cars that we're going to be surplusing here within the next month or so. The value of the 8 car is probably $6,000 to $10,000, maybe, depending on the open market. But we do have and we just did go through the financial document. We can donate it to a fellow or to another public entity as long as there's a public benefit. So that was, I'm sure that's what was done 24 years ago, when it was donated. So it's something to consider. I'm not asking for you to do it tonight. It's something to consider, for the next meeting. And if there's any concerns, let me know. So, Chief Oakstein, he is the guru on this. He has his hand up.
Hey, Chief, sir, just want to add, apologize if some of the notes I shared with you were a little out of order or confusing. The 8 car that we'd be donating to Peru potentially would be a shoreline 8 car, because the oldest 8 cars in the fleet are shoreline 8 cars. So it would be a shoreline board making a decision about donation to Peru. We would be keeping the current 8151 and 8157 in the fleet as backups, and retiring out our oldest 8 cars, which are not the North Shore 8 cars.
Is the one that we're planning on then, is that the TerraStar? Because that's not so good for Lima.
Correct. One is the TerraStar and one is one of the older shoreline rigs.
Oh, they're both shoreline now.
That's my understanding, and
But you guys don't have to deal with it.
I'll confirm that, and we'll get back to both boards with correct information.
Okay, I apologize. Thanks for correcting me, Chief. So if that's the case, then you don't have to worry about it. Another update, the battalion chief rig has been, the contract's been signed for the battalion chief rig. It's at Stonewall Bodies in New York, probably about a 5-month build. I already updated you on the 54 projects. One of the things that we're also thinking likely to look at moving forward on at some point is the outbuilding here at Station 51. It was something that was in the budget last year. We didn't feel that was the right time with all the challenges with economies of scale and the costs and all that, and it hadn't been budgeted for enough to be honest. But we'd like to revisit that, especially with the continued need for Station 51 as a training facility for academies for this, for not only for shoreline, but we're also going to be doing a Bothell, and Kirkland's going to be here. And the likelihood is that is not going to change. In fact, it's only going to be increasing. And there is a fairly significant impact, especially depending on the size of the academy for our staff here. And we'd like to kind of isolate that and also be able to protect our vehicles better. There's actually 3 phases to this that we're looking at doing. One is an outbuilding that we could put 2 or 3 fire engines in, potentially a coal shed to protect our staff vehicles that are sitting here. And then even over here behind the station, creating a space so that we can put some of the the clutter, the props and everything that we use for the academies and store them a little bit more out of sight. So I know that Chief Oakstein's been working hard on this, at least to look at the scope of what we're looking at. Again, it's not budgeted for this year. It was something that we had budgeted for last year, but decided not to do it. And at some point, we're going to want to explore what that costs and what that project looks like. So depending on workload and all that, we might be able to get some traction on this over the next month or two. But it's all going to be about workload and weather, because this is not it's not a huge priority right now. If we can carve out time for Chief Hansen, who's been the lead on this so far, Anders Hansen, or if Chief Oakstein has time, but he doesn't. We might be able to give it a better scope and some ideas of what we want to do.
Chief, I have a question on that too. Well, that a lot of that has to do with the academy. So we have to look at shared costs between all the academy members. So yeah, when we budget that, we need to look at the whole situation and how it will be paid for.
We're on the same page, Commissioner. I believe that there should be some cost sharing with the consortium. We do have some reserves in the consortium. It's not a lot, but that is definitely something that we can consider looking at. And or if there are outside of our consortium agencies that are coming in to be part of our academies, maybe there's a slight surcharge that we put into that to help with the over time offset some of those capital costs that we're investing in. It's not for sure yet, but it's looking like this next academy. I think Chief Foster and the training division and actually the chiefs from Kirkland and Bothell are all working on this right now of doing a joint shoreline Bothell and Kirkland Academy. So that would be again an opportunity to look at some cost sharing.
Is there any other potential funding mechanisms like grants for training facilities?
I would look at those. This probably, well, I can definitely look at it. It's not going to be, I mean, we're probably talking 300,000 to 500,000. It's not going to be a huge amount of money, but there are grants there for training. It's just finding those. I definitely feel like we have a compelling argument story. So that's definitely something I'll be looking at, but we don't even really what we'd like to do now is get the time to build out what we're looking at. So we can start getting an idea of what the ballpark cost is. And then come back.
Chief, I had another question, Chief. Originally we talked about having an outbuilding for the water, our water crews and stuff. We're keeping those down by the water in rental places, or what are we doing with our?
Oh, you're talking about the watercraft?
Yes, our watercraft.
Oh, the watercraft. Okay. So during the season, they're down on the dock, on the floating dock at Kenmore Air. On the off season, they're in a trailer here in the apparatus bay. So they're warm and dry. And because of the less likelihood of them being used, they can still get trailered down and deployed. It's just a longer deployment. So that's been our plan now. But certainly if we had an outbuilding, I don't know if there would be space for that, but right now they're kind of out of the way behind on the kind of on the north wall there. Here at 51.
Yeah, so the thought is that if we need to add apparatus into 51, that we'd have an outbuilding to put those in. So it's something to consider with your crew that's looking at the academy space, that we may want to add some space for the storage of the watercraft.
That's a great idea. And to be clear, what we're looking for is probably an apparatus bay with some classroom space above, so that they don't have to be using this room, and space so that they can be, the academy can be separate. The consortium will still be here, but the academy could be separate. And there might be space for other storage, whether it's watercraft or whatever. But we're just finding that the days of having academies here are not going away. So it would be nice to not have impacts with the rest of operations. So more to come on that. I'll have to get back to you on what that looks like once we have capacity and a scope and all that. So my phone went to sleep. I think that was it. Yes, that's it for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next item, 7.2, any commissioner reports? No. All right. Go on to 7.3, legal counsel reports.
No report tonight.
Actually, I would like to add, I think I put it in my activity report too. There's a pretty big concern out there about, well, there's a number of different things, that got passed in this legislature, but one thing I just want to make sure that everybody was aware regarding housing, there's two things that could impact us. First is that there's increased in density of housing allowed for different levels of cities. I want to say it's 25 to 50,000, 25 to 75. I can't remember the thresholds right now. I believe the first one's at 25,000. So higher density on single family residence lots. And that's of a concern, but the bigger one that that Chief Oakstein and I actually were discussing even earlier today was there is legislature that has been passed which allows for up to 6-story buildings, multifamily residence with only one means of ingress egress, one stairwell.
6 stories.
6 stories. That is a real concern of ours, and whether or not what that looks like, how soon it'd be implemented and phased in and all that, but also how that affects our operations. And do we need a change? Do we need, I think it's completely ludicrous and putting our community at risk with everybody trying to exit one place and we're trying to go in. And what if there's a collapse there? Or what if there's somebody who falls or something? I mean, so I just wanted to bring that up to you, bring it to your attention. And I think I put it in my activity report, but just put some emphasis on it.
Is that something that can be changed on a local level?
I think it'll get challenged in the courts because of the safety. I don't know that for sure, but there's been talk about that. So I don't know if there's any grounds that will make it, that would allow it to be overturned, but it's definitely of some deep concern to us. It should be to all of us. Anyway, sorry to be down.
All right. Next item is setting a future meeting agenda items.
Yes, so for the meeting next month, it will be on June 6th. And the agenda items will include a possible report from the consultant on the property at Northeast 153rd Place.
I'm hoping I'll have bids on the AV by then. That may be a little too quick. We'll see. So maybe put that as a possibility.
Anything else?
Let's keep the discussion of these added buildings for the consortium. Keep that on the agenda so we can be updated.
Okay. We'll see if we can get traction on that too.
Okay, because that's going to take some.
Yeah, that's not a short term.
We have to work on that one.
Any other comments? Okay, any objection to calling the meeting to an end? All right, with that, we'll end our meeting.
Thank you. All right.